Okay, this is Orlando Wilson, and what I want to talk about in this video slash podcast is an incident I came across a few years ago now in the US, reference a very messy custody battle for a couple of kids. And this type of thing is very, very common, but it's not too well publicized. And also what is very common is people that abuse the US domestic violence laws for their own benefit. They abuse the laws to discredit the other partner, the other person involved, and this can cause a lot of problems for the person that's been wrongly accused of doing things. I'm not going to elaborate on that in this story, but things get very, very, very dirty. Anyway, in this case, this couple got divorced. The father, who ended up with the custody of the children, very respectable gentleman, an academic, very mellow, etc. The wife, what can I say? Latina, she's Colombian, a little bit volatile. I've got nothing against Colombians, but as we all know, Latinas can be a little bit volatile. Anyway, before this incident, the wife, who had visitation rights to the children, had broken the terms of the visitation rights multiple times. But the father had done nothing about it. She'd taken the children outside of the county she should have stayed in. She'd overstayed her time with them. She'd taken them away to various places. But the father, that just wanted a quiet life, wanted the children to have a quiet life, was fed up with the BS that had been going on in the past, didn't do anything about it. Maybe this led to his ex-partner thinking that he was an easy touch, thinking that he was a pushover, and she kept pushing the point, and ended up causing him a lot of problems and cost him a lot of money and legal fees as well, because nothing's free, right? Especially where law and lawyers are concerned. This incident, the father was at home one evening with his children. One of the children was being a little bit of a pain, so they got scolded and sent to bed early. The child went to bed, not too happy, upset that they was yelled at, scolded, sent to bed early. Was talking with their grandmother that happened to be in Colombia via a messaging app, and told the grandmother they had an argument with the father, etc., etc. And I think the child was like 9 years old, about that age. Anyway, the grandmother, being a grandmother, called up the police, the local police department where the father lived, and told the police that he had beaten his daughter, her granddaughter. The first thing the father knew about this was when he had somebody hammering at his door. When he opened the door, there were cops there, social services, and also an ambulance, because they had the report that he'd beaten the living daylights out of his 9-year-old daughter, which was completely untrue. The father was handcuffed, etc. He lived in a very respectable, nice, quiet area, and all of a sudden there are police cars there, ambulances there, etc. Once the situation was clarified, once the police and social services had talked to the daughter, seen the messages, and understood this was just the grandmother being, how can we put it, spiteful, everything was cleared up. Now, the father was very understanding, etc., etc. So, the next morning, he's making breakfast for his children. And apparently he was making strawberry pancakes. So, when he heard somebody hammering at his door again, he answered the door with his hands covered in strawberry, which could have been mistaken for blood, etc. This time, again, it was the police, and he was looking down the barrel of a gun. He was, again, handcuffed, etc., etc. The police were there, social services were there, an ambulance was there, because they had another report that he'd been beating the living daylights out of his kids. This time the report come from the mother of the children, who was, again, not in the US at the time, but called into the local police department and told them the father had been abusing the kids. The police response was the standard police response, how they have to respond to domestic violence situations. So again, the father, in less than 12 hours, had been handcuffed twice, and the last time put at gunpoint. So once everything was clarified, once he'd managed to talk to his lawyer that talked to the cops, etc., once the police understood the situation, all was well and good and life went on. That incident, those two incidences, again, caused distress to the father, caused distress to the children, cost him money and legal fees, and again, I think woke him up to actually take action against the mother to try and restrict her rights and to go through the legal process to restrict her rights and make sure people knew that she was a little bit psycho. Just from those two incidents, that could have caused the father, well, it did traumatize the children, but that could have caused the father big problems. As I said, the last time he was at gunpoint. Why? This was the second report the cops had of domestic violence at that location within, well, less than 12 hours. If he just happened to open up the door with a knife in his hand that he'd been chopping up the strawberries with, he could have got shot. So this is where, if you're involved, or if you know people involved in very messy domestic disputes, especially where child custody is concerned, you have to be prepared for the other party to take, how can we put it politely, drastic and unethical actions. I know of one case in the US where a mother, because her ex-husband was getting along happily with his life and had a new girlfriend, a new family, a new life, told the young daughter that was going to school to report that daddy had been inappropriately touching her, which again got the guy arrested straight away, and then he had to prove his innocence. His innocence was proven after a couple of months when the daughter admitted that mummy had told her to say that. The guy was apparently a good guy. I came across him, and he ended up having a lot of problems because of a spiteful ex-partner. What happened to the women in these cases? Criminally nothing. They're reporting what they believe to be crimes, etc. So this is where the domestic violence laws in the US are there for a good reason, but people do abuse them. And this always has to be taken into consideration. But again, if you're involved, or if you know people involved in this type of situations, they need to be extremely careful. You need to be extremely careful. And you're better off, if there's, especially if there's child visitation rights involved, if the other person violates those visitation rights, the terms of those visitation rights, it needs to be reported, action needs to be taken. You can't be too nice, because if you're too nice to psychos, then they see it as weakness and keep pushing. And even though they're nice to you, maybe nice to you to your face, they want to destroy you. And it's very easily done if they have an unscrupulous lawyer, unscrupulous friends, and they use the laws that are in place unscrupulously. So I hope this story will make you think a little bit. And if you're involved in this type of situation, please be very careful. In the meantime, I'm going to be putting out more of these videos talking about cases I've dealt with in the past that can possibly give advice to people in similar problems. So follow me along on social media. And if you're connected with me on social media, feel free to ask any relevant questions. In the meantime, be good, stay safe, and always be careful, and always expect people to do the unexpected. And always remember, betrayal never came from an enemy. Betrayal always comes from a friend, and it always comes from somebody that's close to you.